Welcome, folks. Welcome back to the Pin Podcast, the 2020 MLB Draft Preview version of the podcast. We're going to go over this entire extravaganza. This year, though, is a little bit different than most. The MLB Draft is always weird when it comes to comparing it to other major sports drafts because of shit that we'll get into. But this year, because of COVID and because of all the shit that's going down, it's even more different. You want to kind of do a little introduction to what's different and what's normal?
The MLB draft is very different from the major drafts for the other major sports because of the fact that players can decide not to sign by the teams they're drafted by. There's also 40 rounds, and there's also a slot value for each pick in the draft based on, I'm not sure what it's based on, but there's an assigned value for each slot in the draft. So teams can negotiate with their players.
The first overall pick, sorry to cut you off, the first overall pick, just so people kind of get a glimpse of it, the first overall pick this year is worth a little bit over $8 million. Then after that, second, third overall picks, $7 million plus, and then it keeps going down from there. Sorry to cut you off.
Right. And also, teams have bonus pools that they're assigned each year. So certain teams, like this year, the Orioles, Tigers, and the Royals have the most amount of money in their bonus pool from $12.5 million to $13.8 million, and that gives them flexibility to pick players, high quality players who will be worth more money because they might be high school players with college scholarships that are highly ranked, and they could just go to college and build their value even more. Or they can be your college juniors that could stay or pass on the draft and go back to college and try again next year. It's a game within the game again. Another facet of baseball is kind of like that. And also compensation picks are given to teams based on free agents leaving the organization, and also based on if they drafted a player the year before and the player didn't sign. For example, Brady Aiken, the left-handed pitcher, was drafted by the Houston Astros, and based on medical reports, the team decided to give him an offer that was undervalued, and he passed, and he then went back to college. And the next year, the Astros were given a compensation pick, which turned out to be the second pick of the draft, and they picked up Alex Bregman, who is now a superstar.
Yeah, pretty good return right there.
Yeah. Just to show you how that works, this year the MLB draft is kind of different. This year it's only going to be 5 rounds. The bonus pools are a lot smaller. The time values for their picks are a lot different, and the money's being deferred from the players also. I think for someone that's just getting into the sport, this draft might be pretty good for them to ingest because it's a lot smaller. And but one thing that's important to pay attention to is the fact that undrafted free agents that are eligible to be signed can be signed by teams for $20,000 each. So look out for teams like the Rays, the Indians, small market teams like them to sign players, along with big market teams like the Astros, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox. They're going to be they're going to be signing a lot of players because of their brand, and they have a lot of money to just sign a lot of undrafted free agents. One thing about the draft that's really great is there's a lot of college and high school talent. There's a lot of depth in this draft, and because of the college baseball season being canceled and the fact that a certain amount of players will be given extended eligibility, the next year's draft is going to have a lot of depth as well.
Yep. The thing with the draft is when you cut it down from 40 rounds to 5, that's such a drastic difference, especially when the talent gap, say between round 5 and say round 7, for example, is really not that huge. So there's going to be a lot of quality undrafted free agents to be signed by teams. Like you said.
There's a lot of talented players, very talented players that go from round 6 to round 40.
Yeah,
that wind up being major league pieces.
Yep. Another thing that makes the MLB draft different is that, see, in the NFL, for example, right? Say you have a big problem at safety. You're like, well, we have a big need of safety. We can just, we pick a safety in the first round, and that should take care of that for the next couple of years, unless we're really unlucky. In baseball, it really doesn't work like that because every player, to some extent, is a toss-up. There's always a chance that he might not even reach the majors. So that's the deal, really. You can't just go and do quick fixes and say, oh, we're lacking pitching, so this guy will be up in 2 years. You got to think long term. You got to have a plan in terms of how you pick, the type of players you pick, and a lot of times it ends up coming down to just picking the best player you can find. Really, I mean, I think I'm correct with that.
Yeah, you are, and there's also the fact that certain organizations are better at developing certain types of players. They have the organizations have their strengths. So, just to give an example, just because I know them so well, the Cleveland Indians like to draft young high school players that are able to perform against players older than them. That's one thing that they like, that they think makes players successful, being able to be successful against older competition at a young age.
Yeah, the Rockies like college pitchers.
Yes,
with good command. The Dodgers like athletic players. Yeah, that type of deal.
So, right. So each team has their kind of archetype of what type of players they like to pick based on their front office and their scouting organization, and the success of the players at the major league level. Because I've seen the influence that Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor's success have had on how the Indians draft players and sign international free agents. As there's been a big wave of switch hitting athletic infielders coming to the system in the last 4 or 5 years. That's what they like, guys that make a high rate of contact, are athletic, they're fast, they can play defense, and they're smart baseball players. So if you're a baseball fan, you just kind of have to look at your organization's farm system and how it's structured currently, and the tendencies of your front office in the draft, and find the patterns and kind of put the pieces together. But you also have to look at the fact that in baseball, you don't draft for need. Like Mario said, you draft based on talent level and based on who you feel comfortable developing, injury history, build, how they're built, their age. That's a big factor as well, because your average baseball player isn't even gonna make it to the majors in general. But the ones that do can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years on average. Rarely do you see a player rip to the minors in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's not common.
Unless it's advanced college pitcher that's pretty much already MLB already.
Yeah, or an advanced college bat or something like that.
Right.
So, with all that being said, I think it's fair to kind of get into. I think it's fair to get into the top prospects, sort of. We're not going to do a whole, a huge list. I think it's fair to talk about sort of the consensus top 10-ish. I think that's fair because those are the big names that you're going to want to pay attention to as they go through the minors. Once you start getting into the back of the first round, it's still real talented players, but teams are going to start drafting players based purely on a talent level. So the 10 players that I've seen ranked pretty unanimously in top 10 lists. I'm gonna name them and let me know if you've seen them too. Spencer Torkelson, first baseman, best hitter. I heard best all-around hitter. Power, contact combination. He is only a first baseman, which kind of and a right-handed first baseman at that, which kind of limits his whole upside, but his potential as a hitter is really, 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 really high. So he's the consensus number one. Then is Austin Martin, who plays third and center field. You've seen him in at least, I assume.
Yes.
There's some talk about whether he'll. Scouts wanted him to. They wanted to see him at short. He ended up playing third, and he's played center as well. So there's some talk that he may end up at center anyway. He has the best hit tool in the class. Go ahead.
I agree. His bat is going to play anywhere, but I think he's more of a left fielder, second baseman. He doesn't have this. I don't think he has a plus speed to stick in center field in the major leagues,
nor the
especially
arm
once the National League, or the arm at third. So I think he's a second baseman, left field type.
Yeah, but I could agree with that.
If the bat is going to be the most of his value, then he should be able to play it at left field or a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's an offensive minded second baseman, then you take that every time.
Absolutely, you do. Just passable defense gives you value. So after those two, then the third prospect that I've seen rounding out the undisputed top threes to say is Asa Lacy. He's a lefty, college lefty, big frame, 6'4", 215, projectable. There is maybe some concerns with command, but he has plus stuff. The frame is there. You know, he's the kind of quote unquote safe pitching prospect in some ways that a lot of teams really look for.
Yes.
In the top of the draft.
Yes, Asa Lacy actually was one of the only pitchers who did the MLB's MRI program, and there's teams that thought his medical information was average or on par with what you expect from a college pitcher to teams that were had above average concern about his frame and his build. Asa Lacy for a lefty, he has a lot of velocity for a lefty starter. He sits in the mid 90s. He has probably the best slider in this draft, and he has a pretty good third pitch too as well. With him, it's just about using his control and the command in order to be effective on the mound.
Yeah. After those three, some other prospects I've seen are Emerson Hancock, righty. He's from the University of. All these are college players, by the way.
Yes.
Georgia, yeah, Georgia. I clicked out of the window here out of Fangraphs. Emerson Hancock, righty pitcher, 6'4", 213, basically, same type of build. Then you got two position players, Nick Gonzalez, second baseman, once again college player, and then Zach Veen, who's a high school center fielder. You seen both of them in the list, I assume?
I have.
Yeah, they're supposed to go somewhere around the fifth, somewhere between the fifth and the seventh, eighth picks. Then you got Max Meyer, who's a college righty. I read his profile on Fangraphs. It said, high velocity, good stuff, but there's some bullpen risk because he doesn't have a starter's mix yet. And he's only quote unquote 6 feet, 185. So that's something there. Then there's Mick Abel, the only high school pitcher I've seen pretty unanimously in the top 10. He's 6'6", 190, and not even 19 yet. So that's another good name. And then the last two names I want to say before I pass it over to you, Ray Detmers, lefty, college lefty, 6'2", 210, kind of prototypical pitcher frame. He's only 21. And then Heston Kjerstad, if I'm pronouncing that right, kind of your stereotypical right field prospect, big arm, big power bat. Maybe he hits enough, maybe he doesn't, that kind of deal. You got any more prospects that you can say?
You have Ed Howard from Chicago, shortstop.
Yeah.
He's 6'2", 185. He seems to get shortstop, and he was actually starting shortstop on the Chicago team that went to the finals of the 2014 Little League World Series, and he's the best shortstop of the 2020 high school class. You have Nick Bitsko, a right-handed pitcher from Pennsylvania, high schooler. He reclassified and he'd be graduating early. He's 6'4", 220, so there's a lot of projection. He already has a fastball swinging in the mid-90s and the 60 grade. He has a really good curveball, and his changeup is average.
6'3", 220. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a big dude. But he also has plus control or above average control, I should say, 55 grade, which you don't really see from starting high school pitchers that can throw as hard as he can. So we'll have to see what he can do. Patrick Bailey, the highest graded catcher in the draft from North Carolina State. He's a good fielder. He's going to stick at. He is a switch hitter. He has above average fielding grades, and he has pretty good raw power, but he makes consistent contact, and he has pretty good out to plate as well. Even if his bat doesn't turn out to be as good as people think it does, just based on the fact that he's a catcher, he's going to be a pretty good backup, and he's pretty athletic for a catcher, and he moves better than most catchers.
Yeah. The top catcher I've noticed seems to get picked a little bit higher than projected sometimes.
Right.
So maybe some team in the top 10 takes a flyer on him. I've seen him rank somewhere around the 15, 16 slot in the prospect list. Maybe he gets picked at 8, 9, somewhere around.
Yeah. So the 3 catchers in this draft, there's 3 catchers that's projected in the top 25. We already went through one. The other one is Tyler Soderstrom, a high schooler. He's a lefty. He's 18. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's been labeled as the best athlete, one of the best overall athletes in this draft. He has a 60 grade arm. He's also played outfield, and he's played third base too. So if he doesn't stick at catcher, and you want his bat, and you want to value his bat, and you want to move through your system a little bit quicker, you can move him off of behind the plate. He's a bat first player. His defense is a little underdeveloped because he's a high schooler, and he's played multiple positions. He has a 60 grade hit tool and 50 grade power. Who knows? He might stick at catcher. He might not. He could play third base or right field. He's athletic enough to do that.
Really.
Yeah, it's all about projection. Well, high school catchers especially. High school catchers are very risky picks. They don't really pan out well. They have a high floor, low ceiling. Usually high ceiling, low floor. So they're a bit of a lottery ticket. And the third catcher I want to talk about is Dylan Dingler. He's a catcher for Ohio State University. I have friends who've seen him play, and he's pretty good. He's 6'3", 210, so he's really big. And he actually played center field for Ohio State his freshman year.
Damn.
Yeah, he played center field. He led Ohio State. He led Ohio State high school to Division I baseball and basketball titles when he was a senior high school. My senior year, because he's the same age as me, and we were the same class. He has a 50 hit tool. He's a plus runner and a plus fielder. He has a 65 grade arm as well. He has a rocket for an arm. And he reminds scouts of Sean Murphy. Although his arm isn't as good, he has better accuracy, and his receiving skills are just as good. And who knows, he probably won't maintain his plus speed just because catchers go through so much wear and tear throughout their careers. So there's a little asterisk with that, but he's a very interesting prospect just because you don't see catchers with his skill set.
Yeah.
Who could play center field and be a catcher. Like, that's just uncommon. That's very uncommon.
Yeah. A lot of the top players for this class overall are college players. There's not as many high school players. I think that plays into the hands of some teams who maybe are starting to contend or maybe want to contend in a couple of years. So I think we could start now going through each team, maybe seeing what they may pick. So in order, the first overall pick, the Detroit Tigers, of course, and get used to that. I think this is pretty much a given. They're going to pick Torkelson. I would be very surprised if they did anything else. Would you?
I agree. I think they go with Spencer Torkelson because they need somebody to follow up Miguel Cabrera. And he seems to be one of those bats that can just move through the minors really quickly. especially since he's so physical and big. He's going to skip a couple of the lower levels in the minors off the bat. And if he can dominate like he did in college, maybe the mid-level, he could be in the majors in 2 to 3 years, honestly.
Yeah. Fast riser. So.
Yeah.
Then you got the Orioles and the Marlins picking back-to-back, 2 and 3. I think it's pretty safe to say that they'll pretty much, unless the Tigers do something weird, they'll probably, whoever picks Lacy will pick Martin, and whoever picks Martin will pick, the other one will pick Lacy. So I think it kind of depends. I can see the Orioles taking Lacy, but I don't know how you feel about that.
I think the Orioles, I've heard from what I've read through the various mock drafts on various publication sites, I heard that they might take somebody else under slot in order to distribute their money in their other picks, because the Orioles have like 4 or 5 picks, and they're all in like the top 30. So they could pick somebody else, maybe like Nick Gonzalez. I've heard that.
Okay.
So it's just think the team is trying to give between 4 to 4.5 million with their first overall pick, which is the second pick.
Yeah.
So
that would make other team happy.
Yeah, they would. Because one thing you guys should know: a lot of teams are going to be playing around with the slot values this year to kind of save money, and also make sure they can sign all their players with all their picks. Because you can't not sign a player this year. There's just not enough. There's not enough depth for talent being picked up by these teams. There's also less minor league teams now, which means there's less minor league roster spots to fill in, which are draft picks also to provide depth. Yeah. So when you make your choices, you gotta hit on them.
Yeah, absolutely. So behind the Orioles and Marlins, we got the Royals. I got right here. I just got BPA, best player available. The Royals are at that stage of the rebuild where I think they'll just take whoever falls. If Lacy or Martin falls to them, they'll love it, really.
Yeah, I think the Royals will probably take either Zach Veen or Nick Gonzalez.
I think that's fair.
They're trying to really build their farm system up, and lately they picked a lot of college. They picked a pretty even amount of college and high school players over the last few years, but I think it's one of those too.
Yeah. After them is the Blue Jays at 5. They would love for the Royals to pick Zach Veen or Nick Gonzalez, because that means that Emerson Hancock and maybe even Lacy falls to them at 5, and the Blue Jays really do need pitching. So I think that's I don't
think Lacy falls to 5. I think Lacy falls 3 or 4 at best. But I see the Blue Jays taking Max Meyer. I hear they like him a lot. The heavy favorite, or maybe Zach Veen or Nick Gonzalez as a backup.
I was thinking college pitcher. Basically, that was my
Max Meyer. Yeah, he's a college pitcher, because they need somebody that could follow up Nate Pearson, because they don't have any young pitching talent right now. Ooh, that's close.
Yeah. So after the Blue Jays at 5, we got the Mariners at 6. Now the Mariners they've done really interesting shit. They picked up in the past couple of years. They've picked up basically only college players. They've only drafted like 5 or 6 high school players in the last 5 years, which is rare. So I would think that it would be logical for them to keep going for that route and pick up any college player, the best college player available. I don't know if they'll pick up pitching or hitting. If I had to pick, I'll say pitching. Would you?
Yeah, I think they're going to maybe take Emerson Hancock. And if they don't pick up him, I think if Nick Gonzalez is still there, they might pick him as well. I think Nick Gonzalez is anywhere from like the 4 to 7 range.
Yeah.
This draft. And so are other players in there. I mean, I think Emerson Hancock is like between 6 and 8, maybe.
Yeah. Fangraphs has him as the 4th best prospect. That's why I see him a little bit up. But yeah. After the Mariners, we got the Pirates. Now the Pirates, I saw you tweet about this. The whole thing that there's a team that's trying to just punt the draft, basically draft a player, not even consider signing him. You said the Pirates. I agree. it would be some bullshit.
It's going to be in the top 10. That's another thing. If anybody in this top 10 is punting the draft, it will be the Pirates, just based on the financial situation.
If anyone's going to punt the draft, it's going to be them, which sucks. I mean, come on now. But yeah, so they're at 7. After them is the Padres at 8. What I have right here is college pitching. Would you agree?
I think they're going to take another high school player. They like their young players.
They do. I was thinking more of in the terms of their competitive window, but I can see that as well. I mean, they're not there yet, so it's not like they need reinforcements for next year. So,
right,
or for 2 years from now. So, yeah, I can see that. Then we get the number 9. Now we get to the Colorado Rockies, my team. Here I wrote down. Oh, well, first of all, what do you think we'll pick?
I think they're gonna go to college bat. They've done that the last few years. College outfielder. I think they're gonna take Heston Kierstead.
Yeah, that's
just because that's kind of like that's a profile that's really similar to what they've really picked the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years. Those right field power types, stereotypical right fielders.
Well, if I had to pick someone, I would say no fucking clue. I think there's a possibility they go for a pitcher, college pitcher, because I mean, when you're the Rockies, you always need to draft pitchers and develop them yourself. You cannot just trade for established pitchers. It just will not work as well. So anything from pitcher, corner outfield, like you said, makes a lot of sense. Kierstead 100% looks like the type of player.
I think they could take a catcher as well.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was about to say. I've seen Fangraphs had Patrick Bailey going to them at pick 9, which would be a reach in many people's eyes. But then again, they reached last year for Michael Toglia in the first round as well. So I can see Kierstead because he just looks like the type of player the Rockets would just drool over. Plus power, cannon arm, that type of deal. And then Bailey, I mean, I'm not going to complain about Bailey because the Rockies have never had a good catcher in the history of the franchise, 25 plus years. And he's a high contact switch hitting catcher with solid at least fielding, who has a shot at being a starter. So I'll be okay with that. Just basically anything other than a corner infielder would be great for me. So that's basically what I got. You got anything else on the Rockies? Just kind of rub salt in the wound?
I think they could pick Tyler Soderstrom and go under slot value so they could use their other picks.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
I think that makes a lot of sense because they don't have any catching depth right now. So
they have no catching depth. I mean, the fact that Tony Walters is the undisputed starter right now paints a really horrifying picture. Anyway, moving on to the Angels. Now, for the Angels, I have college pitching. I just put it like that because the Angels, they want to compete in the next couple of years. I think they may like someone who can move quicker through the system. I think now is a good time to kind of dive, do a deep dive of sorts into the difference between picking a high school player and a college player in terms of development and in terms of the timing of them arriving to the majors.
I agree. I think the Angels did take maybe like a Reed Detmers or something like that from Louisville to polish lefty, just because the back end of the top tier college pitching talent is kind of weighing down at this point, and they need a quick moving pitcher that's going to get there and maybe back of the rotation in 2 to 3 years while they're still in their competitive window. And honestly, their window is going to be, it's not even open yet, and it might be open by then because they have Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout locked down. They're going to have Joe Adele playing every day by then. Who knows what else they have going on, but honestly, I think that's my pick for them. That makes the most sense.
Yeah. The thing with college and high school players is that when you pick a college player, specifically a college pitcher or a college bat, a bat first position, you expect those players to kind of move a little bit quicker through the minor leagues. You expect those players to get to the majors in 4 years maximum, basically. I don't think I'm full of shit here. And when you pick a high school player, because they're a lot younger, they're 18, some of almost 19. They're higher risk, of course, because they're less developed. There's always a chance that they bust. There just is. But typically, high school players tend to have, the real high-ranked high school players tend to have real high ceilings, right? So they take longer to get to the majors. So depending on your team's situation and depending on your team's philosophy, you might want faster moving prospects over maybe higher ceiling, but higher risk prospects. Am I correct here in saying this?
You're correct.
So it really depends. Like we've talked about before, the Mariners have picked almost exclusively college players. Some other teams, like the Padres, like Pat said, they love their high school players. It kind of depends on the philosophy, but what every team does from year to year on the draft has to kind of has to sync in some way. You can't just pick randomly. You got to have a long-term plan in place to build the farm system, and then those players can hopefully get to the majors, because it's just a scale, really, just moving up, where it's a lot of them won't even make it. I don't think there's ever been a full first round, like every single first round pick made it to the majors. At least I can't recall that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that's never happened. It's just
another example. Just another example of how different the MLB draft is when compared to the NFL draft, for example. So after the Angels, we go to the White Sox. This is a team that's almost there at their competitive window. Who do you got for them?
I think they kick a college bat. I think if Patrick Bailey does fall to them, he will be there for them to take. Just based on they taking the best college bat they can find at that certain point, or wherever their pick is. That's just what Chicago does with their first overall pick usually, just because they want to have their talent. They took Andrew Vaughn last year, and then a few years ago they took Nick Madrigal. So we'll have to see what they do. But
yeah,
White Sox are really simple, really easy to kind of figure out. They take college.
I had BPA, basically college player, best college player available. That was basically what I had. I think it's fair. After that, the Reds at 12. The Reds, I don't fucking know what they're gonna do.
Me either. I think they take an older high school hitter. That's in the top 15, maybe. I mean, a high school hitter in general, but they're not afraid of older high school hitters. I know Fangraphs has Austin Hendrick at the 12th spot for them.
Okay. 19-year-old.
So we'll see.
Lefty, yeah. They're difficult to figure out. Development pitching is always important in that ballpark. But we'll kind of have to see where they go from here. The Giants, I think we can put them in the same boat as the Royals, right? I mean, they'll just pick the highest rated player on their board who drops to them.
Yeah, and somehow we'll make it to the majors and it'll be good for 10 years.
Yeah.
And we'll just forget about them.
Fuck the Giants.
That's just what they do.
Fuck the Giants in two ways, by the way. Fuck the New York Giants. Fuck the San Francisco Giants. Fuck them both. Then 14, we go to the Rangers. I kind of felt that they might go for a hitter here, but I saw a lot of people putting a pitcher on this spot. Do you agree?
I think they could go either way, but I think they're going to be conservative regardless with their pick. I think a lot of teams are going to play it safe this year just because of the nature of the draft. I know I've said that before, but there has been a lot of scouting. Certain players have gotten more coverage and more of a profile just because they've been known more on the scouting circuit and whatnot. So they might be favored more, but you can see a lot of surprises this year.
Yeah, you might see. So after that, we got the Phillies, another team that I have no fucking clue as to what they're going to do. I think that both pitching and a bat makes sense.
But I think they take the best available pitcher.
I think that's fair. The D-backs, I wrote here the best available college player they can find. That's what
I
I
think
would
I haven't
predict.
taken the best available center fielder. Maybe like Garrett Mitchell or Peter Crow Armstrong. Just because in the last few years they've drafted a lot of center fielders with the first pick, and
Yeah, okay. They might just
I
go for
think
natural.
I think Tyler Soderstrom slides down this far too. Maybe
I think that's fair. The thing is, people, you're always going to see a lot of catchers, a lot of shortstops, a lot of center fielders picked high because they're just high value positions. So they're
and
just going to
pitchers.
get picked high. Yeah, and pitchers, shortstops, catchers, center fielders, up the middle players and pitchers. You're going to see a lot of them picked high in the draft because, like we said, they're valuable positions, and you just want to accumulate talent, right? So after the D-backs at 18, we got the Mets at 19. Here I saw pretty unanimously, I saw pitching for them exclusively.
I agree. I think you can take the best available high school or college pitcher, maybe like a Nick Bisco or something like that.
Yeah. Then the Brewers, I got best player available. Period. I can see them taking a high schooler here.
I think they could take a pitcher that might be relief ready.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
we'll
That's
see.
actually something that they might do too.
Yeah, they might do that just because, like, they could pick somebody that could get out major league hitters tomorrow, they would do it.
Yeah, they absolutely would. And they still wouldn't make him a starter. They still wouldn't have an impact starter. But after that, 21, the Cardinals. I think it's going to be pitching. We talked about on the preview for the Cardinals when we did it. We talked about how the rotation depth maybe is not as good as you want it to be, and even though they have a couple prospects, it never hurts to pick up more pitching. So yeah, I think it's fair to just say pitcher. You think high school or college pitcher?
I think you'd be either or, but not lately. They've been picking I feel like they've been taking talented high school players that have fallen to where they are in the draft, so they could probably take a high school player that's getting passed up.
Okay, that makes sense. After that, 22, the current World Series champs, the Nats. If I had to bet, I would not bet because I have no clue. They're in such a weird position where even the fast-moving prospect may not get there enough to kind of continue their current window. So I'm not sure what they're going to do.
I said college or high school pitcher.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I can see college pitcher for a lot of these teams, but there's a lot of them in this class. After that, now we get to number 23. Pretty fitting. The Cleveland Indians. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator. The Indians. Draft profile is talented players that have fallen further that teams try to float down the board, and young high schoolers. So, for example, Brady Aiken, who didn't make it to the majors, Ethan Hankins, Daniel Espino, the last few years have been pitchers they took, or players in general. But I think they take a young outfielder, one of the young center fielders in this class. For example, Peter Armstrong, he's a top 15 talent. He's going to stick in center field. He has a great hit tool. And he's young. He's only going to be 17. Still, he's going to be like 17 and a half. And he fits their profile well just based on what they like. They like guys who can hit and are fast. I don't know. There's so many players the Indians could take just kind of based on the amount of talent in this draft.
I wouldn't bet. I think it's fair. I can pretty much bet on them picking a high contact player, and that's it. High contact player.
Who's 17 years old.
Yeah, yeah. And that's pretty much it. I think the next one is the team that I have absolutely... Now this, I've said about a couple teams before that I don't really know what they're going to do, but it's more in kind of they could go different ways. I can kind of see like 2 or 3 options. The Tampa Bay Rays at 24. I have zero fucking clue what they're gonna do, but it will probably be brilliant anyway.
Yeah, they diversify a lot. And I think they're gonna pick a pick that gives them financial flexibility in order to maybe make better offers with their later picks. They have picks at 37 and 57, so I think they could go at a college arm. That gives them some flexibility, so that way they won't have to go over a slot and try and snag a high school away from this Division I top program signing.
Yeah. I can definitely see the Rays doing something like that. The thing about the Rays is they also have a competitive balance pick at 37, and we'll talk about that when we get through with the first round, how competitive balance kind of affects what some teams may do. After the Rays at 24, we got the Braves at 25. I would say pitching. Again, it sounds redundant, but I mean, that's really what I'd say. I think the position player side is pretty well taken care of.
I agree.
I just see that them doing that. Then the A's, the Oakland Athletics. I have no fucking clue. They got bad rep, of course, deservedly so because of what their owner did, not what played minor leaguers. So we'll see what happens with that. But I would say college player, and just
I have no clue either. I said we just kind of skip over them.
Yeah,
I think the Twins go under slot. Maybe get an infielder, young shortstop. Who knows? I think the Yankees and Dodgers take pitchers, high school or college, but they're both great at developing pitchers, so it doesn't really matter who is. They're gonna pick somebody who's gonna wind up in the majors. Yeah,
and be a star because that's what the fuck they do. Fuck them.
Right.
So after that, of course, after that, pick number 30 is forfeited because the Astros fucking cheated. Fuck them too. And because of that, we go right to the competitive balance picks. Competitive balance picks are awarded to teams that, if I'm not mistaken, it's the teams that generate the least amount of revenue or something to that effect. I should remember it, but I don't right now. I think it's something similar to that.
I think the Orioles take another pitcher again, just because there's so much pitching depth in this draft, and I think you're going to take a lot of college arms going to go in this draft just because they're looked at more. There's some more history behind them, and more of a profile, just kind of based on the uncertainty with this draft and things like that with the high school players.
Yeah, and the Orioles need all the arms they can get, so
exactly,
I think it's fair. One interesting thing about the competitive balance picks, you got then the Pirates, Royals, D-backs, Padres, Rockies, Indians, Rays. One thing that's interesting is that the Indians and the Rays, a lot of these teams are bottom dwellers, but the Indians and the Rays are not, and they both pick late in the first, and then they pick in the 30s as well. I think there's a dynamic right there.
It is, because usually when they have those back-to-back picks, they usually make two great picks, and in some order, either a high school player and college pitcher, or college pitcher and high school player. And usually both guys make it to the majors, contribute, and are above average players. The Indians and Rays have some of the best development organizations in baseball and some of the best scouting in baseball also. We'll have to see what they can do, what they do, because we know the Indians are going to take another young player. Maybe I could see them taking a Blaze Jordan at 36, maybe, if that's who's like a Spencer Torkelson, a mini Spencer Torkelson, who's in high school. His hit tool isn't as good, but he has just as much power. Like he hit a 500-foot home run in the Features Home Run Derby last year at a major league park in batting practice. Like, think about that.
Yeah, that's pretty.
A high school kid, he reclassed, so he's only 17 as well. A 17-year-old hitting 500-foot home runs.
That's the kind of shit that makes water at the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I was 17 and 500-foot home runs, because I'd be a millionaire. So he's gonna get picked. He's really talented. It just depends on where he go from 36 to 56. The Rays, they're gonna make a great pick. I expect him to. You have Detroit, Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, Toronto, Seattle, Pittsburgh. I think they either take a shortstop or a pitcher. That's kind of what you do at this point in the draft.
Yeah.
You draft
high value positions. That's it.
Yeah, high value positions because those are usually the best players. There's just so many great college players in this draft this year. It's just
it's very
stacked.
heavy. It's very college heavy. It's not a lot of high school. There's not a lot of high school arms. That's the one thing I've seen.
There are, but they're probably gonna go to college and probably build up more value.
Yeah, that's another thing. You pick up that they won't sign with you. Now you fucked up. You get a compensation pick, but still, that's such a different dynamic now when I think about it to all the other drafts. It's fucking weird for someone who's getting into it for the first time. Anyway, then you got the compensation picks starting at 67 and ending at 72. Like we talked about before, Giants have 2, the Mets, Cardinals, and Nats. It's pretty much what Pat said. You pick high value positions after like pick number 30, pretty much after like pick 30, 40, you start seeing a whole lot of middle infielders, catchers, center fielders, and pitchers. And that's really what you're going to see. The high level, non up the middle players are going to be picked higher up because they're more sure prospects. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think the whole deal with this draft is, like you said, is very unpredictable. I think you're going to see a lot of players drop a lot further than it's expected. And the whole deal with that is that it's going to cause some teams to not spend as much money as maybe you would expect on their high picks, so they can just keep signing players, undrafted players, and then the whole nine. Like, you're going to see a whole lot of undrafted free agents get signed. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like we were kind of a little bit all over the place in a way, but I think it was in a good way because it's kind of a good representation of just how fucking insane the baseball draft is, and even this year especially.
Yeah, and the fact that we're not going to see a lot of these guys playing minor leagues this year, it's a big deal too.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. This year, the guys are talking about in the 60s and 70s and rounds 3, 4, and 5 are second round talents. Just to show you how good this draft is. It's very unpredictable this year. And then you have the fact that teams are also forfeiting picks because they sign free agents and whatnot. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. Another thing about MLB draft is that it's difficult to get attached to the players your team drafts. I don't know if you feel this way, but I do.
I agree. Unless they're like a star.
Yeah. Unless their top 5 pick is difficult, because you likely won't see them play, right? So it's just this whole thing. You pick them and you won't see them in like 3 years. So it's just a little bit complicated to get. It's like baseball itself, really. It's like the regular season. Everything's just a slow grind. So yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate recap.
Yep.
So with that, hopefully we were clear enough. That was the Pinch Talk podcast. That was the 2020 MLB Draft Preview. A lot of college players, a lot of high-level players, a lot of players that are going to get fucked over by the draft only being 5 rounds. You're going to see a whole lot of undrafted free agents, high-level undrafted free agents sign for a misery, which we kind of talked about on the previous podcast, and it's something that is a conversation that needs to keep happening because the players just keep getting fucked over. And yeah, that was the Pinch Talk podcast. Check the description below for all the links you need. Our social media accounts, Pat's articles, the whole shit. And yeah, that was a Pinch Talk podcast, 2020 MLB Draft Preview. And we're signing out, people. Peace.